Hi, everyone. I'm Summer,
I'm Carrie.
and this is Hopelexia Podcast.
Join us to talk about sex, drugs, and self-improvement.
There are 32,647 different combinations of symptoms that people have and can have and still be diagnosed with conduct disorder. It's a lot, right? So, if you think about that, with all of the parents that I've seen in 9 years, right, that's 10, like a little over 10% of all of the things, right? So to consider that there's 90 more percent to go by the time any one human being has seen that many children, it's time for them to retire. Right. You could plug in that stuff, right? You could, he has, they have this gene and they have that gene and they have this other factor, right? And then hopefully you pop all that into the computer. Algorithm pops out like a 15-page report. Here's everything you need to know about your child and what will work best for them. Right? Like it can be done. We just have to decide to do it. Right? And stop worrying about, let's get the research done first. Like, no, we don't. Like, you want to just ignore all of the people that are alive right now and just be like, yeah, screw you, buddy. Right? Like it'll eventually happen, but we don't care to help you now. Yeah. Right? It's just like, it's so, I've had things which is, I'm a huge fan of advertising on social media platforms, and allowing the social media platforms to, track your use across other websites, because those algorithms have picked up stuff that I didn't and sent me stuff that made a difference for me. So I had absolutely no idea that I had Hashimoto's thyroiditis, but Facebook's algorithm did. And it sent me an ad for a local person who dealt with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And I never would have found that on my own. Just wouldn't have even occurred to me. Right. So those algorithms are incredibly powerful and can push information to the people that need it in ways that, human beings can't. So if every person on the child's team got together, right, and shared their wisdom and like, okay, here's my piece of the puzzle and here's my piece of the puzzle, by the time we all got a handle on it, it would probably be a really prohibitively long time before we all had, made our say and talked to each other and combined the knowledge, right? I just don't imagine that would be a really quick thing, but a computer could spit it out in, 15 minutes or whatever, and bam, you know what to do.
I think especially if it was connected to places like 23andMe where they can look at your actual genetics.
I know. Yeah. One of the things that I was talking with a researcher about, and this is somebody who's actually working in genetics to see if they can isolate the appropriate gene, right? But one of the things we were talking about is at the same time that they do the PKU blood from the cord, you run this test too, right? Mm-hmm. So we would know immediately from the beginning, what genes do they have that we need to watch for, right? And PKU is actually a really, really perfect example or analogy, I guess. So do you guys know what PKU is other than just that it's the cord blood thing?
Not really. I don't have any kids, so I never.
Okay, so PKU stands for, oh my goodness, thank God for our alphabet soup. It's a really, really long, sort of cumbersome name to repeat, and it doesn't really entirely matter for the purposes of this analogy. But this is one of those, right? We want to talk about genes and environment, right? This is a how to mitigate things with a gene environment interaction. So with PKU, the reason that they test this when the child, first comes out is that they have to be on a very, very special diet or everything goes very, very horribly wrong. And so I think, that is absolutely right. Genes times environment. Okay. So you have the gene for this, you can't eat this thing or it will do, shoot, my ring light got, how did I do that? Anyway, okay, I guess it's just going to be a glare. There's not much I can do about it. Oh, no, I know what I did. Did I? Nope. Cool.
It's all right. You're already sideways.
Whatever.
So-
True.
What is
Yeah.
there's a lot happening today.
So, I don't see how getting cord blood for this thing would be any different, right? Because if you know that this child has a biological predisposition to X, Y, or Z, right? It's probably not going to be one gene, right? It's probably going to be, several genes interacting together that will be, causative, but like you would be able to know this. I mean, first and foremost, like that would be the point where you're like, okay, great, let me go to one of these special schools that we have not yet, um, made and collaborated on. But like we would know that, right? We would know that if they have some other terrible interaction in some other way, like we could be more on the lookout for what would I guess what would sort of sink them further down into their biological predisposition, right? Like things that which said in a sort of non-scientific way make them worse, right? Like if we could avoid those things, or we could use the things that would make them better, right? And we would know that we needed to do it instead of waiting until they're old enough and can tell us things, or old enough to crawl across the room and pick up a knife and try to slit your throat, right? Like
Yeah.
we would have a molecular diagnosis, a genetic diagnosis of this thing, and we could do it early on, right? Like the earlier you can address the problem, the better.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
I feel like when they can do like the in utero testing for stuff like Down
Amniocentesis.
syndrome, I think
Yep.
they do. And you can do testing to see if you have like genetic markers for like breast cancer, even. It's like the BRCA genes, stuff like that. They could look for something, like if they ever figured out like what the gene might be for psychopathy.
Right.
Like,
Right.
if there are multiples. I feel like it's
Well,
like that, maybe.
I don't know if it would be, and this is sort of like, above my pay grade here, but I don't know if amniocentesis would be, I mean, I guess you could, and then maybe you had, the ability to do things differently during the prenatal development period. But I do know one of the concerns that creates, and I'm going to open up a whole big can of worms here. Nice, yummy, smelly worms. One of the things that might be a consideration against doing amniocentesis is that it might cause people to abort the child because they don't want to have a child with that thing. And I know that would, that could be a problem for some people. It might not be a problem for other people, but I think if it was amniocentesis, there might be people who would not want that to happen just on the basis of, that a parent could terminate pregnancy. And I'm not saying I am voting either way. I'm trying to be as vague as I can without, sort of revealing my own personal beliefs, because I just at this point, we have to set stuff like that aside and everybody has to talk. I mean, we want these kids to have empathy and cooperate, but we won't do it with each other. Like, what kind of hypocritical examples are we setting, right?
Well, and I think again, with the information we currently have, of course, the likelihood, it's very unlikely that there could be additional intervention prenatally, outside the basic guidance that's already given on how to, increase your chances of having a healthy baby. So it seems like doing it after birth or at birth would be the least invasive. And that's when that's also when you would be more likely to be able to start interventions, because there's not a whole lot you'd still be able we would be able to do as far as this issue in utero.
Right. I mean,
At least
there are
from what we know now.
Right.
You know, there might be something, but we don't know it. You know, how to stimulate that part of the brain.
Right. Well, we do know, so we do know that fish oils, well, okay, let me rephrase that. There have been studies done that say that omega-3s, and that the study was done on using specifically fish oil, but you can get it other ways. And so the study said that if you give your kids, fish oils or other things with omega-3, that it could help reduce violence and aggression. And so there definitely have been parents in the group. This is Adrian Rain, by the way, who did this, and he sent me the articles on that. And we talked about that a little bit, about like, does it have to be the fish oils? Does it have to, can we do other sources, especially for vegans? Like, they don't want to, do it that way, or maybe the kids will go, yeah, fish, right? But you can do flax seeds, you can do walnuts. There are a bunch of different things. And so what he basically said when I asked Dr. Rain about that was, is there a specific dose? Do we have to? And he said, any amount you can get into their body, do it. Right, even the slightest amount, because it can help some. And we have had parents in the group report that since they started doing omega-3s with their kid, the violence and aggression, reduced, which is, it's only anecdotal, but still that's huge. And I would imagine that last, trimester where, stuff is like, what if the mother took fish oils or some form of omega-3? What if, there were extra vitamin D or other things like that? Because that could be what, something that could be done. And I don't know for sure. I really don't. I'm just sort of speculating, but that could be something to do. Like, oh, here's some special high dose fish oil because we recognize that your child has this genetic predisposition, and children like this with this genetic predisposition typically come out with malformed brains. So let's give you these fish oils or omega-3s or whatever to see if that can make a difference. And, I don't know that it would work, and I don't think we have any data, but also having a cohort of women take some sort of omega-3 or fish oils is probably not going to hurt anybody. So I think it would be a really, easy way to test that. Oh, well, wait, no, they wouldn't be able to test because you wouldn't know what their brain was like because they were still in the womb. But,
Right.
I mean, still, you might, it would at least be worth trying. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily know if they were going to be more violent than they ended up, but like, I mean, I guess you could do two studies and do one study, but you have a control group, and then the placebo, the people who go through it, and see if there seems to be a marked difference in the two things. Because we could do structural MRI on them, right? And that's regular MRI for people who are listening. But they can see in just regular old structural MRI, people who know what they're doing and can read it, like they can see that the brain is malformed. It is differently shaped than the rest of us, right? And so that would be something that they could very easily see. And so you could do, theoretically, again, the two groups of, put them all in an MRI and see if there is a difference in the structure of the brain. See if that one group has a less malformed brain than the control group. And I mean, if not, go back to the drawing board and hope mom had fun drinking some fish oil.
Yeah, I mean, if people, Summer, I think we talked about, like, with the red dyes, like, with people with, like, autism spectrum disorder. Did we talk about that?
Some people are sensitive. We were talking about that yesterday on our group call.
Yeah. Like, some people with autism are, like, way more sensitive to, like, red dyes.
Oh, yeah.
When they take that out of their diet, it reduces, like, behaviors. like a little bit or like altogether for like some behaviors, not all, like some of the more like agitated like behaviors where like they get overstimulated by some things and get like upset by it. Not all of them. Definitely not every person,
Right.
not every behavior, but like it can show like a reduce for a lot of people with autism. And like I feel like it's kind of like similar to that. Like it's not like a for sure thing, but like you can see it in some people. So I feel like
Yeah.
it would be good to like at least try to do it with the fish oil stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. What have you got to lose,
I
right? Like
try.
it's certainly
Yeah,
not going to make
like
it bad.
just
I
add
tried to give my
routine.
kid. I tried to give my kid supplements to see if it would help. I found a pile of them under her room.
Oh, nice.
She kept doing it. I'm like, she could have just told me she didn't want to take them or something, like, and I would have kept paying.
Sure.
I think she just wanted me to keep buying more because she faked it for I don't know, a couple months until I found where she was stashed, and I was like, really, you gotta be kidding me.
That's yay. Stash of Man, that is straight out of a Hollywood movie where people are like hiding the friggin' stuff in their mouth, right? I
Mhm.
mean, which I understand isn't just like that as actually a thing people do, and they check for a
Right.
reason. But
Yeah. Now I found the other day I was when I cleaned this out and everything, and I was she had moved the insulation, like the hose for the propane heater comes up through the floor, right? And so it's insulated, right, to keep air out. She had moved the insulation out. So anyway, I was trying to fix it. And in doing this, I saw something underneath the building. So I sent my kid, because this building has it's got rocks piled up under the bottom. Instead of having like an underpinning, it has rocks piled up,
mhm.
underneath it, to keep things out. So I sent my kid, the youngest one, to go under there to fish it out. It was a bottle of trazodone. She had stolen one of my prescriptions, and it was empty.
Oh my God.
I thought the prescription didn't come in the mail. He
It
took
did.
it.
She just got there first.
Uh-huh. Apparently so.
Wow.
I mean, with everything else that's been that she done, it sounds right on par with that.
That's I have to say though, I am actually a little bit impressed. Because I've been hearing stories of children who steal their parents' meds for years and years and years. But this is the first time I heard of somebody intercepting it at the mailbox. It's usually like it's gone from the cabinet, or they'll take
Well,
some out or whatever. But
I always had them with me, right? Like I would keep them. Well, I kept them locked in a box in the house for the longest time, but then once she poisoned me, then anything like that left with me. Like it was in the vehicle with me, it was in my locked briefcase that went with me, something like that. So they weren't around for her to take, except she had the code to the package delivery box.
wow. So any parents with a child like this out there who are watching, if you get your medication in the prescription, yes, you get your medication in a prescription. Oh my God. If you get your
In the mail.
prescription in the mailbox, take heed.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, all this time you thought I had all these covered, and there was,
I wonder
because
how
there's always
she got it.
something that they could get into.
Like, I wonder how, like, if it was underneath, like, the building, I wonder how she would just, like, Was there a sneaky way for her to go under there and get it?
No, I think that was disposing of the bottle. I'm sure she probably kept it with her or something. I do know at times she hid things within her body. So
At what age? I'm just curious. What age was she
when
hiding
I
stuff in her
discovered that,
body?
she was 15. She was 15 when I discovered that. I don't know how long it had been happening before that.
How did you find that out?
I knew she had I
remember this.
It was a cell phone. Okay. Which to me is like, oh my God. But I know it happens, but like, oh my God, are you kidding? I knew she had the cell phone on her person because she had I had to go out of town, so she had to stay with a friend who was trained as a therapeutic foster home. So I was like, okay. And we went over all the behaviors and everything. So she knew she had seen her with the phone. She knew she had the phone on her. And then I was like, and she told me, and I'm like, because she said something about her being on her phone. I'm like, what phone? She doesn't have a phone. But there are currently 2 phones that she has stolen that are still missing. So I knew she had the phone on her, and I'm like, where are you hiding this? Right? And so I had her even take her hair down. I'm like, she doesn't have it. Okay, all right, this is interesting. So I had her change clothes. And I noticed she had a pair of bike shorts on under her pants, which was interesting. I'm like, okay, that's not a normal thing for her.
Oh my God, my kid used to hide stuff in those shorts too.
Well, they were not in the shorts. They were not in the shorts.
That.
Yeah. And I had her take the shorts, had her leave the shorts off and put on, I don't know, it was like sweatpants or something. It was something loose. And, she sat in the car like, nothing, nothing's happening, blah, blah, blah. And then when we get to when we get home and she goes to get out of the car and she steps down, I see the unmistakable jar and clench trying to get. I'm like, okay. I said, I know exactly where it is. And you really should not be hiding something, especially that size, there.
That's what I was thinking. I've squeezed a baby out of my body. The cell phone's too big, even that. Like, no. Like, how?
Yeah.
Oh my
Also,
God.
the process of like,
But that explains why there were several times leading up to that when her clothes would be bloody. But it wasn't her cycle.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, and so I was concerned, and I would ask her, and she'd act like she would act like I was crazy. And I'm like, I'm holding your bloody clothes right here, like, and you're telling me this isn't happening. That whole.
So she was willing to.
Happening.
She was willing to injure herself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To do that. I mean, that's.
Yeah, and so after that, after I had asked her about the blood, which was before I found out about what was causing this, so then after that, her underclothes just started disappearing. So I guess when she would get blood on them, she would not put them in the laundry; she would throw them out. And eventually, I found they were thrown off in the woods and all this. So yeah, she was willing to injure herself in order to have this phone she had stolen.
Wow. I mean, gotta admire the commitment.
Yes.
I mean, wow. It's interesting too. I'm sorry to go back to her wanting to run away, right? One of the things that had sort of occurred to me, but I don't know that I, kind of thought about. So I knew that there were kids with conduct disorder who intentionally seek out people who engage in human trafficking.
Mm-hmm. Yes, she was seeking out predatory adults online. That is why she wanted those adults, that phone.
Yes. Yeah. And of course, I am not in any way saying that it's okay for, like it's not okay. That she still needs protection from that, right? Like even if she
Right.
wants that, she still needs protection from that. And it's not something we do, right? We don't ever consider that there are children who are specifically trying to get kicked out of their home and get into foster care because the foster parents won't watch and then they can make a break for it. Like that is not a story that we are told, that it's,
I don't know
very
that I
specific
would
and
have
intentional.
believed it. I don't know that I would
Mm.
have believed it if I hadn't heard it come from the child herself.
True. That's
And she started talking about wanting to go back to foster care and trying to get me to, she was like, I don't know. And maybe because she thought she could be on her own. She was old enough.
yeah.
Well, at that time, the wish was, I want to go back to foster care because when you first move in with somebody, they give you everything you want. And then when they start telling you no, then you can do something to get kicked out and put in another house. And she told me that's because I wouldn't buy her something she asked for, is what led to this. And then she's like, I wish I hadn't been adopted. I want to go back to foster care because then I can basically play these people and get whatever I want. And then as she got older, then it morphed to, I want to be on my own. And so she would seek out predatory adults who would promise to take her away from here and take care of her.
Right.
And I had people ask me, like, why don't you just give up and just give her the phone and let her do what she wants? And I'm like, because just because she thinks she's in control in this situation doesn't mean she is. Like, these people can do something really horrific to her.
Like she's still a
Well,
child.
Right.
Yeah,
like she
exactly.
still needs to be protected from these people.
And it's, it's really interesting because the number of, and this is not just in the United States. And, as we're going through this podcast series, I think everyone can just assume that when I'm talking about something like this, that means it's happening everywhere. And if it's a very localized thing, then I will point that out. So like in the UK, nobody seems to really look into prenatal development to figure out, what that piece of the child's, puzzle is. And for here, we do it. Like, it's just a matter of course, right? But that's very specific to the UK. But anyway, most of the stuff that I say holds true for, wherever we are. But I have heard consistently from parents that the system, the social workers, the whatevers, are saying exactly, why don't you just let her do whatever she wants? I mean, one of the moms in the group from the UK was told to give her child money for drugs. Oh wait, where'd she?
Last summer.
Okay, I'll hold.
It was probably her connection, or I know she had a battery pack. It might have been that.
I'm sorry. I don't know what I did. I left. It kicked me out. I don't know. I'm sorry. You were saying that she was told to give her child.
Oh, yes, she was told to give her child money for drugs so that the child did not go out and commit crimes to get money for drugs. The social worker solution was just give him the money for the drugs.
Having dealt with people who have substance use issues, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that probably wouldn't fix the problem anyway.
Right. They would still steal money for the drugs, right? Like, it's not like,
that's how it works.
It just, yeah. I mean, so many things that we are told like that are just wrong. I mean, there was somebody who in the group, one of the moms does what we always recommend that people do this if they have a child in the house who is violent. put up security cameras, record everything, because no one's ever going to believe you. So you have to have the security cameras. And I don't care what any clinician says. I don't care what any researcher says. I don't care what anyone else says. You need the cameras when you have a violent child. Because at the very least, the authorities need to be able to see what happened if they kill you. Right? Which is, I mean, that's not a joke. That's not hyperbole. There needs to be some sort of videographic
And also
evidence,
false allegations.
and goes to the cloud. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's very common with our kids, is they
It
make
is.
false allegations. And so you
Yep.
pretty much have to have every interaction on record in order to establish that you didn't do what they're saying you did.
Exactly. But anyway, one of the moms in the group she's got all this footage of her daughter's violent outbursts, and nobody believes her. She has tried to get the care team to watch them so that they will see with their own eyes what is happening, and the care team refuses because they say that, they refuse to watch the videos because videotaping her is a violation of her privacy. And I'm like, if this were a wife who were getting the shit kicked out of her by her husband every single fucking night, would you say that to her? Would you refuse to watch these videos where she, that she was recording of her husband kicking the crap out of her? No, you would not. You would not say, well, I don't want to violate your husband's rights and watch the video. Like, what? I mean, at least I hope they wouldn't. Like, that's not something that you should be doing when somebody is, having people, I mean, just,
And videotaping in the public parts of the home is has been a common security protocol for how long have security cameras been?
Oh, I know. I know.
For residential, I mean, that's.
Yeah, like at the hospital, we had cameras like every 10 feet, I think. They were in the hallways, they were in the common areas, they were behind the nurse's station, they were in like our break room, but they were never like in the bathrooms, they were never pointed into the bedroom or anything. Like, and we had to have those because our kids would say the most wild stories about things that staff members would like do to them or say to them, and like they didn't know that our cameras had like audio.
Right.
Thought it was just video, and so they thought they could say we said whatever. And anytime leadership would go back and watch it, like we were saved by the grace of security cameras.
It's huge. It's imperative. It's must have. That actually reminds me of recently we had an issue crop up in the. By an issue, I don't mean the group had an issue. I mean a parent in the group had an issue. Wherein she, because and this will happen. Absolutely, this will happen. It doesn't happen to everybody who has cameras, but sometimes the kids are like, I don't want you to record my behavior. I'm going to destroy it. Right. And so the kid was constantly trying to destroy the stuff. And she was talking, the mother had been talking to, one of the other mothers in the group. And the mother said, well, what worked for me was to tell my child that the cameras are here in the event that somebody breaks into the house or there's a fire or some other dangerous thing happens, so that there's a record for the police so they can get the bad guys, right? So that's what she said. And it worked like a charm for her child. So the mom in question tries this same thing and gasp, it works. He stops trying to destroy the equipment. So I'm going to take a slight detour here for a second and say there is this myth in our community and out there in the world, right, that nothing works with conduct disorder. Nothing works with psychopathy. Well, I'm going to have y'all notice something freaking worked. It worked. It was working. It was doing exactly what was intended. He stopped trying to destroy the cameras, right? And I mean, forget about the just sort of the safety portion of that, right? Like she would have to replace the cameras again if he kept breaking them, right? So there are all these reasons that you don't want him to break the cameras. But anyway, so she mentioned to her care team, this is a mother in Canada, So she mentioned to her care team that ever since she had employed, that she had told him that it was for, police, fire, what have you, in the event of somebody else coming into the house, he had stopped attacking everything. And the care team was like, oh, that's really smart thinking. Wow, that's really wonderful. And then she says, oh, yeah, I heard it from one of the parents in the support group I'm in. And they turned around and said, you shouldn't lie to your kids. You shouldn't be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you? Why do you want her to stop a solution that is working?
For real.
Like, it's working. It is like nothing works, but except when they do, and then you want us to stop it because another parent told us and not you. Like, what? I don't understand how a treatment team can go to do a complete 180 in the span of 15 seconds after only hearing, that it was like, it was great before. It was good work. It was great that he was doing better. She was really smart for doing this. It was a great idea. Then it's like nothing changed in that 15 seconds, right? It's not like
Other than them
something
finding out where the
cropped-
information came from.
Exactly. And I just think it's utterly ridiculous that we find things that work. And that's one of the things that makes the group so dynamic, is that we all share freely with each other.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And to be sure you never miss an upload, make sure you turn your notifications on. And please come join us on social media so we can continue these conversations in between episodes. You'll find us at Hypoxia Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.